A war on multiple fronts, political instability and tensions with its historical ally. It was a tough year for Israel. After Israel opened another war front in Lebanon, its regional rival Iran launched a surprise ballistic missile attack on Tel Aviv, putting the Israeli government and the US administration in a corner. Israel has promised a strong response, and the US has promised to support it. But the two nations seem to disagree on the nature of the retaliation. Ultimately, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has complied with Joe Biden's desire to avoid targeting Iran's nuclear program. But why did Israel agree? And does this signal a shift in US-Israeli relations? What role do the coming US elections play in this matter? And how does that affect the raging wars in the region? Welcome to In Depth. As the world awaits the expected Israeli retaliation on Iran, US officials have warned Israel not to target Iran's energy sector or nuclear facilities in this critical period before the US election. Commenting on the matter, The Guardian highlighted Israel's response to Washington's recent warning. According to the newspaper, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu confirmed that Israel will decide alone on the form of any retaliation to Iranian missile barrage on the country earlier this month, although it would listen to advice from Washington.
After months of raising tensions between the two rivals, Israel's next move is expected to be a strike on military rather than oil or nuclear facilities in Iran. This is according to what Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has reportedly told the Biden administration, suggesting a more limited counterstrike aimed at preventing a full-scale war. After Iran's missile attack on the 1st of October, the world has awaited Israel's promised response that poses a threat of a full-fledged war. There was speculation that Israel could target Iran's nuclear facilities. However, US President Joe Biden has explicitly said that he does not support such a move. Israel, which has recently opened another war front in Lebanon, is not interested in opening a new front or igniting an additional conflict, according to Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant. The United States and Israel are aware that an attack on Iran's nuclear program could erase any remaining red lines governing the conflict, and that the response to Tehran has the potential to reshape the US presidential elections, taking place in less than a month. Another factor here would be Biden's decision to send a missile defense system along with 100 US military personnel to Israel, which could have brought the two historical allies into a common ground after months of tensions between the two leaders. Will Israel carry out its response to Tehran before the November 4th elections, and how would it affect the presidential race?
Right, welcome back. And for more analysis, we're joined by Ms. Ahmed Saeed, international relations expert, and Nizar Nazal, expert in Israeli affairs. Good evening to you both, gentlemen.
Greetings for you and your guests, and thanks for hosting it.
Right, we start with Mr. Nizal. And why has the Israeli government complied with the US decision to limit the Israeli military response against Iran?
As you listen to a lot of declarations of the responsibility of Israel about the targets in Iran, and Mr. Netanyahu reiterated about the petroleums and the nuclear sites in Iran, about the that they would like to target it about in this moment. But I think these declarations, especially in the agencies of the media, that is do not the fact. It is a trick of the Israeli declaration that there are a harmony between America and Israel about all the targets in the Iran. And I think it coming weeks would like to see how the Israeli would like to deal with these targets in Iran. I think in the coming 3 weeks, as I said before, Israel will spotted and targeted these sites, especially petroleums, electricity, and Israel will go for the nuclear sites. For this, I think actually about the America and what is the measures of Biden administrations about the Israel, that he sent to Israel that air defense in order to protect Israel from the reaction of Iran. And I think Israel now thinking about how Iran or to protect the Israeli from the reaction of Iran after the attack of Israel. This is the main issue that they would like to understand between two others, America and Israel, about the targets that I said before, about the, of course, actually the nuclear and the electricity and the oil sources in Iran.
We'll speak and we'll get back to this point again, Mr. Nizal, because we really need to see the harmony between both sides and what they want exactly of targeting or targets they are targeting in Iran. Mr. Sayed, what factors contributed to the US decision to curtail its support for Israeli strikes against Iranian nuclear targets?
Welcome. In my opinion, the Israeli decision to not target the Iranian nuclear establishments or oil establishments, as it was said in the reports and the leaks, based on American pressure by President Biden, I think this is for a set of reasons. First of them, a military factor, meaning that Israel now is ordering its priorities regarding the Iranian targets bank. For example, the necessity to limit the Iranian danger represented in striking Israel and Israeli bases by ballistic missiles that targeted Tel Aviv and other military bases. The air defense systems failed to face these missiles, including Arrow and the Iron Dome and so on. So the danger now is that Israel wants to target strikes towards Iran and making sure that Iran is not able to respond, because the power that distinguishes Iran is the ballistic missiles. So it's going to be a priority. Another factor is that the American pressures to not target the nuclear establishments in Iran, because the current military potential of Israel is unable to target the Iranian nuclear establishments, that most of them are in the depth of the mountains and require special potential owned only by the United States. Israel tackled the Iranian file of nuclear power over the past few years by targeting the nuclear scientists, and cyber attacks like disabling the central devices but destroying the infrastructure of the nuclear program is much more bigger than the Israeli ability That's why Israel reduced this targeting and delayed it to a later phase. Only if they realize that Iran is about to own a nuclear bomb here, Israel and the United States may interfere to prevent Iran from owning a nuclear weapon. As for the oil establishments or facilities, of course, due to the elections in the United States, America will be harmed, which will lead targeting the oil facilities will lead to a regional war and affect the export of oil from Gulf countries, which will affect the total world economy and will increase the prices of energy for the American citizens. So, in the light of the new inputs and lack of desire for a regional escalation by all the countries, especially that Iran sent a message by its Minister of Foreign Affairs that Iran supports the peace option. That's why Israel will only focus on the military bases and they will not target the oil or nuclear facilities.
Right, back to you, Mr. Nizal. And in which way do you think Israel would adopt its strategy in the region following US warnings, especially in Lebanon, after the warnings of European countries regarding the targeting we saw of the UNIFIL forces?
Yes, about the front of Lebanon, you know, Israel, I think, adopted the strategy that she would like to occupy all centimeter that it would draw from it after 1993. You know, Mr. Netanyahu and his government delete the followed of agreement with Egypt that we're talking about, that 2005, about the Sharon plan that he would like to delete it in Gaza and in the north of the West Bank, and back again the settlers to the settlements in the West Bank after Netanyahu jumped to the Lebanon. And now I think Netanyahu would like to occupy all the north of Lebanon, and he would like to cut all the branch of the Iranian in the territorials of Lebanon and Gaza and West Bank, and in the other fronts in the Middle East. Netanyahu have a plan now about the a dream of the big Israel from An-Nil River to the Al-Furat River, after he have a lot of support from the United States of America and all the European official regime. So Netanyahu continue in this war, and he hasn't any political vision. There is no any plan on the circle table between Netanyahu and all the parties.
Yes, Mr. Nizar, but here we've seen the European countries already speaking loudly about this UNIFIL forces target from the Israeli IDF or the occupation forces attack to the UNIFIL forces, and that has been a matter of extremely or for the very first time happens. So European countries spoke loudly about this very important issue. They even spoke about this for the very first time. So how do you view this? How will that shape up the Israeli strategy?
Yes, Netanyahu sent a message to the Guterres before 2 days, asked him to withdraw all the UNIFIL forces from Lebanon to far away of the land in the Lebanon. But the European or some of the leaders, especially Macron, the president of France, condemn all the measures of Israel, especially Israeli forces attack the UNIFIL sites, and many of them him injured. So I think it is a big crisis will be happen after between Israeli side and the European countries after what happened before 3 days or 4 days. Finally, I think the UNIFIL withdraw all forces from the North Lebanon to the other side, still after to the end of this war, because Netanyahu have a big thinking. He's thinking about the as I said before, the occupied of all the centimeters that
Right.
withdraw from Lebanon in 2000 in Mayo in 2000
Right,
before
Mr.
24 years. Yeah.
Yes, indeed. That was this is the one of the times that Mr. or Israel has attacked Lebanon. Mr. Said, how has domestic political pressure with the upcoming presidential elections influenced the U.S. administration's stance on military actions in the Middle East, in particular, the conflict between Iran and Israel?
In my opinion, the US administration, either Biden or Kamala Harris, the vice president, they seem like a lumpy duck facing Netanyahu and his plans on the escalation. From one side, they do not want an escalation in the region because this doesn't serve the strategic interests of the United States. It's not in favor of the United States to have an ignited war in the region. From another side, they do not have an actual pressure to be practiced on Benjamin Netanyahu to curb his actions and the escalation either in Gaza and or in Lebanon, or regarding targeting Iran and trying to drag Iran into an all-out confrontation, which will involve the United States in this war, because the United States will have to support Israel in case of a war. Hence, Kamala Harris, up till now, haven't provided a clear vision regarding cooperation with Iran or the stance towards the conflict in the region, either in Gaza or in Lebanon. She almost has the same stance of the current President Biden. She couldn't distinguish herself or take certain stances. She only tries now to hold the stick from the middle. She tries to polarize the votes of Muslims, Arabs, and the minorities opposing the absolute U.S. support to Israel by talking about the necessity to stop the war and the right of self-determination for the Palestinians and the two-state solution. It's only mentioned in the political discourse, but it's not translated into actual and practical steps to practice pressure on the occupation government to stop its hostility and aggression against Gaza, or to stop the violation of the Lebanese sovereignty. Thus, the United States do not want to make the Jewish lobby angry, and Kamala Harris also wants the votes of the Arabs and the Muslims, which will make her lose the votes from both sides. The Arabs and the Muslims who said that they will not vote for Harris, in addition to the votes of the Jewish who accuses her of not supporting Israel enough. That's why Biden's administration tries as much as they can to postpone the confrontation with Iran or provide supply to Israel by sending advanced missiles and weapons to defend itself if Iran responds to the Israeli action, or at least they will impose economic sanctions on the oil sector, as we have seen in the past few days. Hence, Netanyahu is trying to achieve the largest amount of gains at the military and economic levels. In return, he wouldn't target the oil or nuclear facilities. Netanyahu, in this way, practices political blackmailing against the United States, who already have limited options in dealing with the Israeli side. America now only adopts the strategy of crisis management, not crisis solution, and they postpone everything to after elections.
Right. Before we continue our discussion, let's take a look on how did the U.S. military aid shape Israel's military offensives in the region. Stay with us. Well, welcome back. Mr. Nizal, given the recent political shift in the US regarding military support for Israel, how could this pressure influence or influence Netanyahu's policies decision, both in terms of military strategy and diplomatic relations with allies, particularly the US?
I think there is, as I said before, a harmony between America position and Israel, and I think all the declarations, all the speech about Biden, Sullivan, Kirby, and the others, it is in order to gain the time, in order to give Netanyahu the huge space in order to move from front to the other, in order to achieve his objects and goals. So in the other side, I think Netanyahu will expanding the conflict in the Middle East after all the threats of the leaders in Israel about the attack Iran, after the attacks about the attack after the attacks of Iranian in the 1st of October. So United States of America today do not go to the heavy pressure on the leaders of Israel. Benjamin Netanyahu, Prime Minister, he do not respond to all what they asked, and I think the United States of America and the other countries in Europe support Israel under this bill and do not believe that what they're talking in the media. So I think the coming days will go to escalation more and more,
Yes.
and expanding the conflict. The United States of America will be support and the main support of Israel to the huge
We've got your point. We've got your point,
conflict.
Mr. Nizal.
Yes.
We've got your point here. Mr. Sayed, how does the recent letter from the Biden administration to Israel's leader demanding immediate improvements in humanitarian conditions in Gaza reflect in US or in the shift of the US policy towards Israel, particularly regarding military support?
I believe that the US administration now tries to pursue a double standard policy. First, they send a message that they are supporting Israel and its security, and in all cases, they will support Israel no matter what. This can be translated into the military path. In reality, when the US Ministry of Defense confirmed on the coordination with Israel and the military institutions in Israel, I believe that any Israeli strike against Iran will be done in a military and intelligence coordination with the United States, in addition to logistic support from the United States. Also, the United States provided and supplied the THAAD battery and the warships to deter anything against Israel. In return, they move with relative flexibility in the humanitarian path, because in the statements and the declarations, they are against the escalation and they want an improved humanitarian situation. They support the humanitarian side, and also they say that they are in favor of avoiding the war between Israel and Lebanon. But all of them are letters and political speeches just to contain the pressure from the public opinion worldwide and for the considerations of elections. In all cases, Israel will never take any step either in Lebanon or in Iran or in anywhere without an American green light, without an American military support. That's why America is in dilemma. They are in a real problem because Biden's administration cannot practice real and serious pressure on the Israeli side to stop this irrationality either in Lebanon or towards Iran or in the region for elections considerations. They are afraid to upset the Jewish lobby, and they are afraid that this would affect Harris' situation in the elections, because the Republicans in this case will accuse Harris and the campaign that they gave up on Israel. At the same time,
Yes.
they turn.
Yes. Unfortunately, our time is out here, Mr. Ahmed Said, but we definitely got your point. Mr. Ahmed Said, expert in U.S. foreign relations, and Mr. Nazal, expert in Israeli affairs. Thank you so much, both gentlemen, for your insights and your analysis. And I guess that brings us to the end of the today's episode of In Depth. Stay tuned for the upcoming episodes on Q News. Many thanks for watching.